Okay, so we are right here in the notes, how human activities affect the environment. Okay, and we are going to finish the rest of these notes. Okay, so a lot of this, not the first part, but a lot of this is actually going to be a review. And we're actually going to start with this. This part is a review. So, how humans affect the environment. We do have threatened organisms or populations, or any organism whose numbers decreasing rapidly. Okay, so river otters are endangered. Ospreys are endangered, which is a bird of prey here in the Sound. So that's the numbers are dying very quickly. Endangered mean there's only a few left alive. Extinct, of course, means is when no organisms are left alive. This is the dodo bird, and if you've seen the Ice Age movies, they're portrayed as really dumb birds, and they really were. Their brain is less than the size of a green pea. So that phrase pea brain is actually literal for these guys. They did not have much of a brain. This is a Tasmanian tiger. These are the last known pair. They died. The female was the last to die, but in 1974, they have been extinct. Okay, there's still people trying to find them in the world, but they've been extinct. So extinct is none left, like Tyrannosaurus rex is extinct. Good thing for us. Now, the new part, which you probably did not do in ecology, is looking at human population graphs. And we look at these and we compare countries. So if you look, you see your ages go up in the middle, and they're in groups of 5. And then you've got male blue, female pink, Mexico and the United States. The 0 line is when there's none left. So this side is the male population in Mexico. This side is the pink side is the female population in Mexico. And here is the male population in the United States, and then the female population in the United States. So these numbers on the x-axis represent percent of the population. So, for example, what percent of the female population is 0 to 4 years old in Mexico? Well, we're going to be looking at this graph, this little bar only, 0 to 4, and it's a little bit less than 8, so about 7.9% of the current Mexican population is 0 to 4 years old that are girls. Okay, roughly the same for boys too. Now, if we look at the United States, for girls, if I move this here, that's this line right here. So there's less than 4% of the United States population is 0 to 4 years old. So there's more than double the amount of baby girls in Mexico as there are boys, baby girls in the United States. Same thing for boys, which is true. Mexico's population is a lot bigger than ours. Okay. So if we look, this group, this is the men and women that are 80 years old and higher. Notice how in the United States, there's a lot more people that are 80 years old and older. So the United States, people live longer. And that makes sense because in general, we have better care to medical care, better access. Notice that here in the United States, girls, there's a lot more women over 80s than men. Okay, and this is an older graph that is now decreasing because women are part of the workforce. All right, let's look at this graph. Which population has, quote, stable growth? Well, it would be the United States because we have the least change from 0 years old. If we look at this green line, we start out at, little less than 4%, and then we follow all the way up to the top. So we go from about 4% to about here. So we change only no more than 1.5%. But Mexico is almost at 8 here and goes to like 0.5 up at 80 years old. So there's a lot bigger span from 8% to 0.5 than there is from about 3.5 to 1.5. So in other words, you're looking for, the general rule for this is you're looking for the country that has the widest base. The widest base, that's the higher populated country. So there's more people in Mexico than the United States. So you think, well, why could that be? Well, in the United States, we have a lot easier access to birth control. In Mexico, it's not as easy access. Okay, and a lot of insurance companies in this country will pay for a woman to be on contraceptive care. In Mexico, most people don't have insurance in Mexico at all. Okay, there's a lot more people in the United States that have health insurance compared to Mexico. But their population is a lot bigger. Their base is a lot wider than ours. Okay, which population will increase the most in the future? Well, Mexico, because it has the widest base. So as these 0 to 4-year-old girls and boys grow up, the Mexican population is going to explode. As our 0 to 4-year-olds grow up, it's not going to be as big of a population increase as it will to Mexico. But in general, the widest base has the biggest increase. Okay, so let's look at pollution. So this is most of this is a review from Earth Science. Okay, so we're going to look at air pollution first. Cars, we give out carbon monoxide. Our factories put carbon into the air. We burn fossil fuels, coal, oil, and natural gas. This is digging for oil. We turn oil into gasoline, plastic. So the plastic in your water bottle, the plastic in your cars, most of our cars are made of plastic now. All those plastics come from gasoline. Getting and burning coal, oil, and natural gas depletes our ozone layer. That is the layer around the Earth that has a protective, it's our blanket around Earth that keeps the harmful rays from the sun coming and burning us up. But it also produces acid rain. Okay, fertilizer use. We should be using natural fertilizer. In other words, manure. But we're not. We're using man-made stuff, and that runs off and creates nitrogen increase in our ponds and our streams, and that gives us algae blooms and kills all of our fish. Land pollution. We are storing, most of our military bases are storage for toxic waste that's made by our country. That's why a lot of the bases actually can't be closed, because we have to maintain those underground bunkers. Even if you are using your car, putting antifreeze in your car, that should not go down the drain or down the gutter. The United States and Canada and a lot of Europe, we send all of our computer waste to China for dumping. The people that are born near these trash dumps, and here's a man here, they usually comb these to try to take out like the copper wires and things that are in the computers to sell. Copper is very valuable now. But the people that live near these garbage dumps, here you go. Notice there's something very wrong with her head. Her skull did not form properly, which kept her brain from forming properly. And that is the problem with all the people in China that live near these garbage dumps for our technology. You should never just throw a battery into the trash can or an old cell phone into the trash can. They have to be taken to the landfill, and you have to say, hey, there's batteries in here. Or this is an old computer. You can even donate them. Donate your old computers. Here, toxic in fish and amphibian eggs in the water. This is a frog born with 2 pelvic bones and 2 extra legs. This frog the egg was laid in polluted water. So you have large-scale mutations. This is the Dan River, the Duke Power Plant. Most of the ash they have from burning coal to make electricity for us, that becomes this toxic ash, which this reporter is an idiot to put her hand in there. There's all kinds of heavy metals in it, which get absorbed directly through the skin, and it went into our water supply. And Duke got charged millions of dollars to clean it up and to move all of their coal ash storage sites from away from the waters. When the state government told the Duke they had to do that, they then tripled the price of electricity, and then the state government went after them for that. So it's kind of this war back and forth. Okay, so from Earth Science, do you remember what climate change is? You remember what it's from, what it causes? We've talked about the pollution, air, land, water pollution. Okay, now we need to talk about how does that affect our climate? Well, first of all, overall, the Earth's temperature is increasing. However, some places actually have decreasing temperatures. They're getting colder. Some places are getting more rain. Some places are getting less. Western United States is getting less rain. They've been in a 30-year drought. Okay, not a lot lately. And then last year at some point they got another big influx where they ended up by having water wash away the mountains, and the mountains came down and buried all the houses in the mudslides because the fires from the lack of water burned all the ground and the trees. So lots of problems out in the West. So this is why we call it global climate change, not global warming, because not all places have increasing temperatures. Okay, so it affects things a little bit differently. All right, now, do you guys remember greenhouse gases are a major cause of global climate change? Do you remember what some of those greenhouse gases are? How they affect Earth? Well, here we go. This is from Earth Science. What happens on a sunny, cloudy day? Heat from the sun hits the Earth, warms up the Earth, and then bounces off and radiates overnight where we cool down. If there's a cloud in the sky, the sun beats down, hits the cloud, and the heat bounces off. That's why it's generally cooler on a cloudy day than it is on a sunny day. However, if we have more and more clouds in the Earth, then what does get through to the Earth cannot get out of the Earth at night because it hits a cloud and bounces back down to the Earth. That's why on the weather, they'll talk about, well, we're going to get really, really cold tonight. It's going to be a beautiful, clear sky, and all the heat's going to escape the Earth, and we're going to get cold. Later this week, actually, we will. We're going to be in the 30s and 20s for temperatures the rest of this week. So why? Because we're not going to have a whole lot of clouds, and that heat's going to go right back into outer space. So the greenhouse effect deals with cloud cover in the sky and carbon dioxide. Carbon dioxide acts like a cloud. So it can keep heat from getting to the Earth, but it can also, if heat does get to the Earth, when it tries to escape, if it hits carbon dioxide molecules, then it's not going to be able to escape. So this leads to climate change. So what's changing specifically? This red part is what the ice pack was at the North Pole, there's the North Pole right there, was in 1979. What you see as white today is what is left today. So all of this is no longer under ice. That's raising the height of our oceans. This is an island country. They can't live there anymore. Several of the islands in the North of Alaska, the Indians, they've had to leave their islands permanently because they are now underwater. The same thing has happened in the Pacific and in some of the lower lying islands of Indonesia, that people are having to leave because, notice here, this is just high tide here. This wasn't a hurricane. This happens every day. So there are, from the in Alaska, a lot of the Indians, the Eskimos, have had to move to the mainland Alaska. People from these island nations in Indonesia and in the Caribbean have had to leave. Pacific Ocean, sorry. And they've had to leave because there's nowhere, their island is gone. And so they're having to seek shelter permanently in another country. So we do have a lot of climate change. Something else we're doing is called habitat destruction, which means what you think it means. We are destroying habitats of animals. This is a bridge, obviously. Every time we in eastern North Carolina, we put a bridge over a creek or a waterway, oil and other things from cars that are not maintained but are being driven on the roads seeps down into the water underneath. And we have had a 65% decrease in the amount of animals living in the water in these areas underneath each bridge. And a colleague of mine actually was part of the research that researched this. And they actually have researched out, after so many feet after a bridge, do you get back to normal population size for the animals that live in and around that water. So this is habitat destruction. There's toxicity here in this environment. Non-native species, also called invasive. If you're non-native, I'm a non-native North Carolinian. What does that mean? I wasn't born in North Carolina. I was born in Florida. This is a Japanese ladybug. It crawled off a vessel from Japan, surprisingly, in the port of Wilmington about 20 years ago now. And unfortunately, these ladybugs can mate with North Carolina ladybugs. Our ladybugs are red with black spots. This is the hybrid. And this is a first generation hybrid because it's kind of orangish with black spots. After hybrids start mating with each other, they get a bright orange with brown spots. Well, what does that have to do with anything? Well, birds that live in North Carolina love eating ladybugs. So that's a predator-prey relationship. Your ladybugs do not get too high in population size because the birds and insects like to eat them. Japanese ladybugs, by comparison, are bitter. They stink also. They stink bad. If you've ever killed one, ugh. Our birds don't like them. Our insects don't like them, so they don't eat them. The hybrids have enough of the Japanese parent stink that our animals, our insects and birds won't eat them. So what happens? Well, these species have no predator that hunts them here, so their population grows exponentially. So what's happening is our ladybugs, native North Carolina ladybugs, are being bred out. They're all becoming hybrids. And we don't have anything here that likes to eat the hybrids. Okay, when I lived in Lexington, North Carolina, my house was inundated with these ladybugs. I woke up one morning, they were all over my bed, all over the floors. They were crawling in the window from the back of my house. They were crawling all the way over to the other side of the house, and they were getting out the window closed. Okay, so ladybugs and cockroaches, they can squish themselves down and get right through closed windows. It was absolutely just, I couldn't even get out of the house without stepping on ladybugs. And there's nothing that these hybrids don't react to our bug sprays or anything either. So basically the guy's like, you just have to wait until they stop. They migrate beyond your house. So it was a mess. Every fall that happened. And then every spring it went back the other way. So these hybrids do not have anything to control the population size. So their population grows exponentially, and that is bad. So they're using up resources that other organisms need. Okay, bioaccumulation. We are now right here. So bioaccumulation, bio meaning life. What does it mean to accumulate something? Let's say your mother likes lighthouses, and so over time she accumulates more and more lighthouses. What that means is your mother likes to collect lighthouses, in this example, and over time she gets more and more and more and more. Well, this is the accumulation of life, and this is pollutants, the accumulation of pollutants in our living things in our environment. So here we have a nice picture. There is pollution right here, and it's a pesticide we no longer use, but it's called DDT. And notice the pollution, ppm is parts per million, and it's 0.0000002 or 3. So it's really small. And these little small critters live in that polluted water, and they're okay. But then these smaller fish eat these little guys here. Well, since these smaller fish have to eat a whole bunch of these little microscopic critters, the amount of poison they have in their body is 0.04 parts per million. And that number is a lot bigger than this one. Well, then you go up to this fish. Well, this fish is bigger still, and it doesn't eat just one of these fish. It may eat 5 or 6 of them a day. So the poison in this fish goes to 2 parts per million. That number is bigger than this one considerably. Then you have your bird of prey, your eagle or your hawk or your falcon, and it doesn't eat just one of these fish. It may eat 5 or 6 a day. Well, then all of a sudden it has 25 parts per million. And this bird can die from this toxicity. So this is called bioaccumulation. It is the small amounts of pollution in our waters. They get more and more concentrated as you go up the food chain to the top organism in the food chain becomes toxic. This is a tuna fish. If you like tuna fish, this man is 6 foot tall. This tuna fish is over 7 feet tall. This one fish is worth on the market to sell to make tuna fish is worth over $1,000, up to $1,500 for this one fish. Okay, and this is North Carolina. This is the Outer Banks, North Carolina. I don't know if you like watching the Learning Channel, but they have catching tuna off the coast of North Carolina in the Outer Banks. They have a show about this every week. So these fish are huge. Doctors have told us for more than 15 years now, you should only eat tuna fish once or twice a month max. Why? Because that's the tuna fish right here. If we put this whole food chain in the water, the tuna gets a lot of the poison. Because this fish is so huge, it eats a lot of these smaller fish every day. Also, if you're pregnant, the doctor will tell you, do not eat tuna fish, period, because it will harm your baby. So you shouldn't eat tuna fish or other really large predators. Should not eat them very often. Okay, this picture also is the same thing. So it's showing you that they're using a thermometer to show the amount of toxicity. This is the toxicity in the salmon. This is the toxicity in the tuna or the trout fish. If you're eating albacore tuna, that's white tuna, that's the biggest of all. I love albacore. Or you're eating halibut or shark or pike, notice the mercury thermometer. Now this is extremely toxic. Even this, you're not supposed to eat these all the time. Now, most of the trout that we get in our grocery stores are farm raised. So they're raised in pens and not in the ocean, so they don't have that toxicity. That's the farm raised. They've got their own problems, but it's farm raised. Okay, so conservation. So now we're looking at what can we do, conservation programs right here. So what can we do to help this wildlife that we're endangering by us being us? Well, the root word is conserve, which means to preserve or to protect. So ways we are trying to protect animals. One thing is carpool or ride bikes or walk. It's why Walmart's opening up all their neighborhood markets. They have chosen specific locations. We have one right here in our attendance district. So people can walk to it, okay, that live in those areas. And I see that all the time. So you use less gasoline. We're trying to develop better alternative fuels. You go to the gas station and you see different colored gas nozzles now. Some people have special cars that can run on a biofuel that most cars can't. When I got gas yesterday, I had to get the black nozzle. The yellow and the green are for people who have special engines, because that's an alternative fuel. Creating neighborhood stores. This is like a neighborhood garden that people can take over a bed and grow their own food. Sustainable use. That's using natural resources without depleting them. In other words, instead of cutting down the entire forest, you only cut a third of the forest at a time. Because remember, when you cut down a tree, every animal that lives in that tree is now homeless. So by cutting down only a third of the trees, you give those animals a chance to go somewhere else and maybe to find another home. If you cut down every single tree in the forest, there's going to be thousands of insects and birds just dying because they can't get to another tree fast enough. Reintroduction programs like the wolves. We've reintroduced a lot of animals, the bald eagles, the falcons, the hawks, the California condor. We've reintroduced through our zoos. We have mating programs in our zoos. Their babies get reintroduced into the wild to replenish what our toxicity has taken away from those animals. Conservation programs. India has large protected lands where you cannot go and hunt a tiger. If you get caught, it's kind of steep. If they catch you in the act, they just shoot you. But these programs are set up and they have these motion censored cameras all over the place to detect to see if people are coming in, but it tries to give the tigers a place where they can have a habitat and don't have to worry about human encroachment so they can still survive. Okay, this leads us to biodiversity, which is the very end. Okay, bio meaning life. Diversity, y'all know what diversity means. Diversity means difference. So it refers to the amount of different kinds of living organisms that live in an area. Generally, the more rainfall and the warmer the temperature an area has, the more biodiverse the area is. The most biodiverse area is, of course, the tropical rainforest. They have the most rain and the highest temperatures of general area, not including deserts, where organisms can live. Deserts, on the other hand, because they have a lot of heat but very little water, have a much lower biodiversity. Pollution, of course, decreases biodiversity. Okay, so every time we pollute the environment, we put stress on populations of organisms, and their populations decline because of the stress. Okay, so that concludes your notes for this unit and for this course. Whoop, whoop. So have a great day.